You're gonna make your own bed?
Is it cold out?
Radio says it's 27. David!
Yeah?
It's time to go. You're gonna miss the bus. Get your jacket on.
What time is that?
Almost quarter of. Look at that. Diane. Look at that.
Actually, not too much was going on. A couple of years ago, I was, as they say, just a housewife and taking care of my children in the house, and was waiting to be helped by the state because they said that I had to go to work, that my children were all of school age, and that I had to go to work. I had my high school equivalency and didn't really know where to go from there. And they were supposed to either help me get into hairdressing school or secretarial school or something to do with the hospital, some kind of hospital work. I felt unable to make my own decisions about changing my life. I felt trapped. I didn't know who to go to or who to turn to get started, to know, what I could do. And I just felt I wasn't trained in anything, and I didn't know how to do anything or be anything, in particular. So I decided to call career counseling, and they helped me.
Well, the target audience for career education for us is what we call home-based. It's sort of a term we invented, and really by that we mean people who are not working on a full-time basis, not going to school on a full-time basis, and not in any correctional institution, also not seeking full-time work. And they're really people who don't have any affiliation with existing schools or places of employment. So it's people over 16, and they may be dropouts from high school, they may be college students who have been in and out of college. There are about 60 million people in the United States that are defined in the ways that I've just told you. About 80% of those are women who are entering the labor market in large numbers or will be in the coming years.
And I felt like my life was passing me by, and I was just sitting home, not accomplishing anything constructive. And I just, wanted to get out in the world and help people. I would like to, be a psychologist. I got interested in that. And I just had no idea that I could possibly do it, because I had left school at 16, and I didn't know how to type or do anything. And I just really didn't know what to do or where to turn or who to turn to.
Well, our career education project, we think of it as a kind of model, with the heart of the model really being the counseling service. And in our counseling service, we deliver career counseling using the telephone as the instrument of the counseling. And we use paraprofessional counselors who are under the direct supervision of professionals.
So the service right now works in a sense, if a person calls in, they get to talk to an intake counselor. And the intake counselor determines the eligibility of the client, whether they're working full-time, whether they're going to school full-time or not. And if they're not, if they're home-based, if they meet the definitions as a home-based client, then they're given an appointment with a counselor, which would probably be the next day or sometimes even the same day, later on in that afternoon. When the appointment comes up, the counselor initiates a telephone call to the client. And that's really actually the logistical aspects of how the service works.
Now, we think that initial interview is really important because it's the first time that the counselor's had a chance to talk to their client. So one of the things that we've done is to, in a sense, structure out the initial interview for the counselor so that a variety of areas are considered. The client's expectations from counseling, their previous work history or employment history, where they think they're going in terms of their career plans. So that, in a sense, most of the initial interviews that the counselors have with clients cover a similar series of areas.
I'd like to give you a thumbnail sketch of Chris Salvatore. As I recall, she's a girl about 28 years old, divorced, several children, and a strong motivation to do something with her life in a very worthwhile way. When she first entered the service, she said that she had little or no idea of just what she would like to do, but that she did know that she wanted to get out into the career world and that she personally wanted to be somebody worthwhile. Her whole emphasis was on improving herself as a person, and in improving herself, certainly helping her family.
From the very first time I talked with Mrs. Fitzgerald, she made me feel that there was a chance and that I could find what my skills were, develop my skills. She just, gave me plenty of confidence, and if one thing didn't work out, she said, we'll try something else, and that, she just made me feel that there was a chance. And, it wasn't like a dream or a make-believe type thing that I could never achieve. She asked me many different kinds of questions all about my family situation, my children, how old they were, what kind of education I had had, what my interests were, hobbies, what kind of skills I thought I had, or if I would, like to work with people, or, if I was human-oriented or task-oriented, or if I had any specific goals or, couldn't see my way to any specific goal. And I don't know, I guess she just tried to get to know me as a person and what I needed and wanted in life.
Her particular request during that first interview, if I recall correctly, was that she was so anxious to get started, she would like to even get going with individual courses.
I told her what I had in mind. I told her that I would like to be a psychotherapist, counseling of some type, and she told me what would be involved and how long it would take and so on and so forth and what I would have to go through. And then asked me if I still wanted to do it, And when I said yes, she said, well, great, a good place for you to start would, she made different suggestions. Would be, urban ed, and then if I still felt, as I wanted to go on, then I could, go on to college.
When she had talked about a possible career in the field of social work or psychology, I happen to recall vividly that they were doing a great deal at the Urban Education Center with individual courses, and courses that would help clients in their later pursuit of their career by assembling credits that could be transferable to an ultimate degree. This was just about what Chris wanted to hear at this time. She knew she wanted to work in the general field of social work, possibly even as an aide at this point. But she also had checked out enough herself so that she knew both psychology and sociology would be required programs. I did refer her to Urban Education Center. She had been there and registered before I next spoke with her.
I was scared to death. It was like, 5 years old again, and I'm all alone in the world, and I just felt I had been out of school for so many years that I would just, with problems on my mind from home and all other kinds of things, I just didn't know if I could do it, even though I wanted to so badly. And I just felt I would be older than the other kids there and be out of place, And yeah, it was pretty scary. She told me, that it was the big thing. A lot of adults are going back to school now. And that people would probably respect me for wanting to better my life and doing something about it. And once I got it, into school and got to know the people and they got to know me, the barriers would fall away and the age difference would disappear and all that.
One thing that really came through right from the start with Chris was her forthrightness. She held nothing back that she felt was vital information, and neither did she pretend to know what was ahead for her until she really had some counseling and could get some information.
Well, even though I know Mrs. Fitzgerald only through our telephone conversations, I don't know, she came across to me that she cared, and she was there to help people that were in my position. And I don't know, she sounded excited when I told her what I wanted to do, and she was really happy that I knew what I wanted to do, and she felt that I could do it, and she just gave me confidence, and it was just convenient that if I had a question, I could call her, and she'd say, well, gee, I'll find out what I can about it, and I'll get back to you tomorrow or the next day. Or it was just such a free type flowing thing. We didn't have to make appointments, and I didn't have to go out of my way. If I was busy when she called back, or vice versa. And it seems like she could find out anything. All I had to do was ask the question. And it was very comforting knowing that somebody knew the answers that I needed.
Our career education model really has a number of very important components. There are really 4 principal components. The heart of our model is really the career counseling program, where we're offering career counseling by telephone using paraprofessional counselors. Another critical component is the Resource Center. The Resource Center gathers all of the information from a wide variety of sources to try to find out what is happening in the world of work, what is available for people, what are the kinds of concerns that adults have when they start planning for and implementing career decisions.
While the Resource Center houses a great deal of material that can be used by the professional staff and by counselors and by clients, the Information Unit develops new materials which don't exist in the existing Resource Center, which can be used primarily by counselors and clients. Now, the reason the Information Unit develops new materials is because there are some problems in using the existing materials with our particular population. For one thing, the material exists in a large variety of different sources so that it can't easily be used over the telephone, and so that sending out particular pieces of information to clients through the mail would be very difficult to do. Second, it is often not geared towards our particular client population. In other words, it's written for in-school populations, not for the populations which would use our counseling service. It's written for young people, not for adults, and it's written for men, not for women. So that new materials have to be developed which are usable over the phone while counseling, which can be sent out to people on particular key topic areas and which are geared to those particular people.
And also, the Resource Center has so much material and so many topics that the professionals and the clients would just find it difficult to wade through the mountains of material. So what the Information Unit does is synthesize the material, also keep close touch with us so that we know what's missing from our collection and we can order around their needs. So we have a very close working relationship.
Important factor that I see the counseling service really bringing is the person who does call in for information. When they have the information, there are other problems, other personal problems. That inhibits any kind of movement to initiate any kind of a career plan. And this is where that stereotypical kind of feeling about, well, the career counseling service is just providing information really breaks down, because the counselor and the client then get into some real personal kinds of areas.
One of the ways in which we've talked about the counseling service is that it operates on a model of information, guidance, and referral. So that, in a sense, the counselors are performing a variety of different functions depending on the needs of the client, but also on the capabilities of the service. So that oftentimes clients do have tremendous needs for information. They need to know where schools are located. They need to know what the projections are for particular kinds of occupations. They need to know the kinds of entrance requirements that are necessary to become involved in a particular educational or training institution. Those are strictly informational needs, but they have to be taken into consideration in the context of how they relate to the client's concerns or feelings or worries about, say, going to school. That's where we see the guidance aspect coming out in a lot of ways. A lot of clients also experience financial aid problems or child care problems that really bring into play our referral aspect, where we might refer the client to child care agencies or financial aid sources, things of that sort. As we mentioned before, what we've tried to do is identify as closely as we can and as precisely as we can the kinds of competencies, the kinds of skills, the things that counselors should know and be able to do when they're working with clients, and train them specifically in those competencies during that 3-week pre-service training program. So that as far as we're concerned, the most important thing is not how many courses a person has completed, whether they've taken a techniques of counseling course or a philosophy of rehabilitation course or whatever, but whether or not they can, when working with a client, engage in the kinds of behaviors that we think characterize the effective counselor.
I think the other factor that's come across strongly to me in terms of working with a paraprofessional counselor is their ability to almost totally empathize with the clients, because 3 years ago, I'm sure that some of them felt the same way that their clients feel when they initially call into the service. They have had not only the opportunity, but also the ability to work themselves into a new position, to make a career change. And that's so damn helpful when they're working with someone who's saying, how can I do it? You know, is there a way? The empathy factor is overwhelming.
It's affected my life to an enormous degree. I mean, my whole life has changed now. I feel alive and like I'm doing something, and I have a purpose in life, and my family life is different. I'm happy, you know, and the children have become more responsible and grown up, and we have more to discuss and talk about. And we don't waste time as much as we used to. It's a lot less watching TV or just you know, hanging around doing nothing. There's more personal time for each of us. You know, like when I have to do my homework and they do their things, or they have their own friends, and I'm not as protective as I used to be, and they've become more independent and responsible. They've learned to do a lot of household chores and take care of themselves, and to the extent that I don't have to worry about leaving them all day.
The very first question we had to ask ourselves when we came into the Providence community was, how could we reach the people that we were talking about? Because they're not affiliated with schools, they're not in employment scenes, so that we really had to say, how can we go out and give our message to people? And we really began with the use of the mass media.
I was haunted by dirty floors, till I called career counseling at 272-0900 in Providence. I had several long talks with a career counselor about what kind of career might suit me, where the jobs are, and how I could train for one. We did it all by telephone, for free. So if brighter prospects are more important to you than a brighter floor, call career counseling at 272-0900 in Providence. Career counseling, you're beautiful.
Beautiful. I love that spot, in part because it's one of the most effective spots the outreach component created during the past year. The term outreach really is an accurate description of what we do, because we're trying to reach out to the public. First of all, we aim to inform people about a relatively new concept, which is career counseling. Also, on the second level, we're trying to recruit people to our service to become clients. So it is a reaching out so that people can reach into us.
One component which really is a framework for all of the other activities in our project is the research and evaluation. That component sort of keeps us in line. It really begins asking questions at the very beginning when the client comes in and says, who is the client?
The research and evaluation component within this project is very large and probably much larger than you would find in a regular social action ongoing project because of the research nature of this project. We are breaking the ground. We are trying to find out what are the important parameters in the model and how those parameters will change when we change the program. One of the important functions that we did before we even started writing any kinds of instruments was to go to each of the component leaders and ask them, what are the questions that you want answered? And once we had some kind of a determination what the questions were going to be, then we designed the data collection instruments that gather the data that would be necessary in order to answer those questions. The outreach component would be interested in such things as what kinds of clients are we attracting. Primary question would be how many clients are we attracting and how many of various kinds of clients.
I think too they're interested in knowing which medium is drawing clients to the service.
Right. We contact the client within a week after they terminate and give a questionnaire to try to find out their satisfaction with the service.
Almost 90% say they are satisfied with both their counselor and the telephone as a medium of counseling. And they also say that at the same level that they're satisfied with the program as a whole.
The things that we think are unique about our own particular career counseling service, there are several things. One is the people that we serve. They are adults who normally are not served by existing agencies in the community. Also, the fact that we are delivering the career counseling by telephone exclusively. Some of our clients do come into the Resource Center in May, but for the most part, almost all of the counseling is done by telephone. Also, we are using paraprofessional counselors who are under the supervision of professional guidance counselors, who are in many ways very much like the target population that we serve. The other, what I think is unique in some ways about our project is the fact that we really try to bring the information, all the kinds of information that the client may need in order to plan and begin implementing career decisions, such as not only the education and training offerings, but what does the world of work look like? What are the kinds of supportive services such as financial aid or testing or child care that are available to the person? Really trying to pull together all of those pieces of information about who are you, what is out there, and how do you make that link work? Bringing it together in ways which can be understood and used by the client. If you take each one of these pieces individually, there's nothing dramatically new about what we call our model, but we think that together these things really work to help people.
Life is so exciting now, and there's so much to learn and so many different viewpoints, and you just can't have narrow opinions. People don't allow you to, you know. You come in contact with so many people. Being stuck in the house, I don't know, you just thought, you know, every day was the same, and you just couldn't imagine how other people felt and lived. And now you come in contact with so many people here, and they just make you aware of so much more than you knew existed. I got a letter during the summer which excited me very much. I made the dean's list last term, and my midterm marks were very good. And I worked so hard that I would hope, you know, that I would get good marks. And yet, you know, I seem to keep surprising myself that I'm capable of doing it. There's always that doubt that, you know, I wouldn't have been able to. But I just needed that reassurance, I guess, you know, to see those marks in front of me, like proof that, you know, it's getting through.
Mrs. Fitzgerald was right then. You can do it.
Yep, she was right. I could do it.